So it's maintenance time again. We're coming up on the end of January. Just trying to get these side-by-sides ready for the tough spring ahead of us. I always try to go through and change the transmission and front differential fluids, as well as get up to date on any repairs I need to do. So this one here, we just did a drive clutch replacement, prop shaft replacement, and so what I'm going to do today is service the transmission and front differential. These are what I've been using. I don't endorse AMSOIL or any other particular brand. One thing that I try to keep in mind when I do my service work on these is these do have warranty on them. I mean, at least this one does. So to retain that warranty, you don't have to use Polaris fluids, but you do need to use the correct style, weight, specifications. I mean, like the transmission gear oil, I think is a GL5. Yeah, GL5 rating. So you have to use the right stuff, because if you do have a transmission failure or a front diff failure and warranty asks what oil you've been using, you better be ready to show documentation of your Polaris oil or AMSOIL or whatever you're using, and be able to present that so you can show that, yeah, you have been changing your oil and you are using the right fluid, or save your receipts if you have a shop do it. And a lot of people don't realize the old Rangers actually only had a yearly requirement to change the gear oil, transmission fluid, front diff oil, whereas these newer Rangers, they actually recommend you change that oil every 100 hours, which I think is crazy. Just crazy short period, but I mean, that's only 2 oil changes. But that is the recommendation, so be ready if you do have a claim. Be ready for them to challenge your maintenance practices. Make sure you keep good records. So having said that, we're going to use this AMSOIL front diff, front drive fluid, and transmission differential fluid. We're going to start with the transmission. Here in the back, this is your fill plug and your check plug. You're going to check your oil there too. And so we're going to go ahead and change our transmission oil first. There is the plug for your engine oil. And I should also mention, I've got the rear end jacked up so I can get under here easier. Don't forget to put a jack stand or 2 under here. Make sure it's your chassis supported. I mean, if somebody comes in or a kid grabs your handle on your jack and throws your jack down and you're pinned under this, it's not a good deal. So watch out for yourself. Be safe. Here is your transmission drain plug. In the past, Polaris, these have been really tight. A lot of times you got to take a brass hammer or a hammer with a brass punch and give that a good wrap, and that'll usually break free. You don't want to strip that Allen head plug out. And I've even had some luck with, like this one would be hard to reach with a hammer. You could take this 8mm socket, stick it in there if it'll stay, and then wrap on that with a hammer. I've had good luck with that too. So we'll go ahead and try to get this broke loose. Get my drain pan under here. And see, this newer one, this just broke loose, like no problem. Like I said, they've not been over tightening these newer ones on Polaris models, at least the ones I've been around, so that's a nice change. Make sure you get the brass washer to come with that plug, or at least keep an eye on it. Sometimes there's a brass washer, sometimes they use a O-ring. Ugh. A lot of steel on that drain plug. This has been in there for 1 year. Pretty dark stuff. Of course, Polaris's fluid is purple, I think, so kind of hard to tell by color alone, but we'll let that drain. Come around over here to our drain and fill plug, again, same deal with that. If you have a hard time breaking it free, give that a little whap with a hammer, not too hard, and go ahead and break that free. Also a good thing to mention, and I should have before I drain the oil, but always a good idea to make sure you can get the fill plug out first before you pull the drain plug on a transmission. And the reason is because if you can't get the fill plug out and you drain the oil, you're going to have a hard time putting oil back in this transmission without that fill plug being out. So make sure you can get that out before you pull the drain plug. That's just a good practice to do. I'll go ahead and get a funnel ready, let this drain a second, and we'll go ahead and start refilling. So I've got a funnel here I just designate for this type of stuff. It's got a lid on it. And I just use some clear hose that's roughly the same size as the opening. So that works pretty good to fill, and then with the clear hose I can see when the oil is up near the top of the fill plug hole. So you know when to quit adding oil. So the trick there is just to get it as full as you can, hurry up and pull your funnel out and throw your plug back in. Make sure you put your drain plug in first before you go ahead and start filling, or else it starts to get kind of expensive that way. So alright, we'll start filling her up. So we've got the drain plug here. See if I can get it to focus. Got quite a bit of metal shavings on it, as you saw when I pulled it out. Go ahead and wipe those off with a rag. And when you're looking at that, make sure there's no big chunks or anything. I mean, fine shavings is what is common on there. So get that ready to go, and go ahead and put that on your socket like this. Make sure your O-ring's on there, and keep everything as clean as you can. Go ahead and thread that in there. Now the torque spec on your drain and fill plugs is right around 15 foot-pounds. If you have a torque wrench, go ahead and torque it, but I just try to snug them up. You think about how tight they were when you took them out. Go ahead and just snug them. You want to be able to get them out next time. And you're done on the bottom. So I've already thrown some oil in there. Got our transmission oil here. Now on these 570s, typically it takes around 1.5 quarts right in there. My camera zoomed out. Yeah, around 2 quarts of oil will leave you 1/2 quart extra probably. Usually in your owner's manuals, depending on the machine you have, it'll give you how many ounces are required for the transmission and your front diff. And usually those are pretty accurate. If you're in a colder climate, it helps to warm that oil up before you start trying to force it down a funnel with a small hose. Alternative oils I have used would be John Deere Spec hydraulic oil. I've used that in these transmissions a lot. Not this transmission specifically, but the 700 and 800s I've used that. And I think it's not a lot different as far as weight and protection goes. Tractors need that, also need that GL5 rating, so not a lot different in terms of what they need and specification wise. But if you're dealing with warranty, don't go down that road, and if you do, you're on your own. If you choose to put the wrong oil in, that's your risk you're taking. So if you don't do a lot of writing, maybe it's best just to stay with the correct specs stuff. So we're just about full, so we'll throw the plug in here in a second and go from there. Oil's all the way up to the top, starting to run out a little bit. So we'll go ahead and put our fill plug back in. And not get it too tight. Again, 15 foot-pounds is plenty, so just snug it up. And you're done with the transmission. I always like to either write in a book or under the front hood or someplace, write the hours or miles. That's it for changing oil on the rear end on the transmission. Nothing much to it. Use some decent tools, good lifting equipment, use the right oil, and you should be in good shape. Thanks for watching.